welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 99 for Monday, July 27th, 2020. My name is Johnny, but the internet knows me as Pixel Riffs, and joining me, as always, is the ever-satisfactory Joel Duggan. Hi, Joel.
Hey, you know what I've been up to.
I do. I've seen your Twitch notification.
Yes, yeah, it was a big weekend this weekend. But if you want to hear more about sweaty shroomlights and the housing market, and maybe some D&D, you should check out the Render Distance. That's the pre-show conversation that we have every week before we record the Spawn Chunks. And you can get that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. With a little asterisk, you might not have to dig that far next week. What happens after episode 99? Episode 100. And we have decided that to celebrate 100 episodes, we are going to release the Render Distance, which is normally part of the Patreon support rewards, to the public. So next week on the Spawn Chunks, you'll notice it'll be a lot longer and have a very informal beginning. It's a really casual chat in the Render Distance before we start the show. A little bit of behind the scenes, as we get ready for the show and talk with the live chat in our Discord, and then we'll release that to the public. So if you find that interesting, keep an eye on this space or the Render Distance next week, included with the Spawn Chunks. Basically, the way that it looks, it's like a podcast sandwich. You've got the Render Distance for 10 or 15 minutes, then you've got the traditional Spawn Chunks that you've been listening to for 100 episodes, and then you've got the Render Distance outside post-show at the end. And it's a lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it.
I expect a lot of our conversation next week will just be turning to what it's been like to have 100 episodes of a podcast. And normally, we generally chat about whatever's going on in our lives and like whatever we've been up to, other hobbies, that kind of stuff. And sometimes we get a couple of prompts here and there from the Discord chat. But I think it is largely next week going to be like, well, hey, this is a celebration now instead of just doing the regular show, which will be part of it, obviously. Yeah. But I think it's going to be nice to chat about that outside of the context of, well, we're here to talk about Minecraft. So excited to release that to everybody for once so you guys can get a peek behind the scenes at what it's like to be a patron of the show.
Speaking of Minecraft, what have you been up to this week, man?
This week, I have done a lot of stuff in the Nether, as you might expect from the Nether Updates. The most recent thing I've been doing is taking over and restoring a treasure room bastion. And that was something we talked about a little bit when the bastions came out, and we realized they were going to be these remnants, these ruins left behind in the Nether, and I thought that's going to be a fun project at some point to just restore one of those, build all the pathways back up made of blackstone, take out all of the basalt and areas where it's supposed to have been crumbled down, and try and arrange it into a more substantial structure. So that's what I decided to do. I'm doing a bit of interior decoration of it as well, moving in some nether wart blocks that I'm using as carpet and a bit of the crimson wood as accent colors and things like that here and there. Actually discovering some really interesting building tips. For example, did you know that walls are transparent and will let light through?
I did, actually, because I've been using that trick.
Yes, and it's a very good one because you can now create areas that are, 3x3 of wall that glows from the opposite side, or at least, maybe if not visibly glowing, then it's at least letting light through so that you block mob spawns in the surrounding area. And that turns out to be very useful when you're doing interiors, especially if you've got thick enough walls that you can just spam torches behind there and then put up these half-block partitions that walls are now because they all connect and you don't have gaps in them. So I think those are a super useful thing to use when you're doing interior decoration stuff, and I've started to do that in the Bastion, mainly by accident because there are sections of the Bastion that have columns of lava running through them, and you're not supposed to go through that area, but if you block it off with walls, it actually looks really great. So I've been picking up a couple of tips like that, and I think I now have a more of an appreciation for the deliberate ruining of bastions. Like, it does seem to be quite systematic as opposed to what I thought it was before, where they just kind of turned the randomness of removed blocks from the structure up to a certain threshold and then just like let the world generation algorithm do its thing. It seems to be more deliberate than that, the pieces that they're all made out of. And so that's quite impressive to me now, what they've done. And it does look really cool once you've restored it. Once you take out all of the stuff that looks quote-unquote messy and it feels like more of an organized structure, you still have to work with blackstone bricks being everywhere, but in the context of the Nether and the color harmony, to pull a phrase from your lexicon, the color harmony that those blocks have with the blocks of the Nether around them, they feel a lot more at home there. So I'm starting to feel a lot more at home there. I'm having quite a lot of fun. The most recent thing I did there was converting the magma cube spawner that's down there at the bottom, hanging under the bridge, into a farm, which I found a lot easier to do if you just block off all of the blocks around the spawner, because magma cubes will spawn in any light level, so putting lights there doesn't help. But if you enclose the entire thing in a solid block and then build the farm structure around it, and then the last thing you do is remove all of the blocks around the spawner, you can set it up pretty well. And I've just got them chasing an iron golem down into a pit, and then, I can stand there with a looting sword whacking at them. They're all on slabs, so they can't attack me because the room overhead isn't high enough for them to be able to jump through. And I have a little XP farm and magma cream farm at the bottom of this bastion that I'm slowly turning into a home.
Cool. No, I've not physically been inside of a piglin bastion yet. I've seen server mates stream it, but I've not done it myself yet. We've only found the one, and the magma spawner was destroyed. So I do want to find another one, like a magma farm would be on my list, of farms to make in Minecraft. But
yeah, and in the spawner, it's not necessarily going to be as fast, I think, as building a magma cube farm in a basalt delta if you have the opportunity to do that, because I think the natural spawns there are just going to be a lot faster than waiting for the spawn cycle of a spawner block. But obviously the amount of work you would have to do in spawn proofing the remaining area of the basalt delta, so you had farm conditions inside the farm, would be a lot more work. So I think it's kind of a bit of a compromise there, which way you want to go with it. But it's been fun. It's been a fun project trying to figure out how it was going to work, and obviously being so different to overworld spawners because you can't use water, and magma cubes move in such a unique way compared to the other mobs that you get from spawners like blazes or zombies or whatever. So having to apply a different set of rules to it. But if you think of it as a hybrid of a slime farm and a mob spawner farm, then you're halfway there. And at that point, really, all you need is, just a little bit of time, a little bit of lava to push them into the right areas, because lava can push fire-resistant mobs very easily now. And it does the job. It's pretty good.
I really want to try to do some stuff with lava pushing mobs, because I've got an old blaze farm design that relies on the Nembon pathing mechanics. No blocks to path to, but the giant blocks, a block of blocks on the other side of your trap, and it works, but it's slow. And I feel like to get things over to close where you can smack them with a sword, if you can move blazes with lava, then that would be great, because you'd be able to use both mechanics. Get them to the lava with the pathing, and then use the lava to get them into your little tiny, kill chamber sort of situation.
Yes, lava does move mobs pretty slowly. I will give you that. So it is one of those things where, as long as you remove them from the area around the spawner, it's going to work a lot more efficiently, because then they'll just respawn as soon as it realizes there isn't anything in the area, and a spawn cycle can continue. But yeah, once you have them in the lava streams, it moves at roughly the speed that everything else moves in lava, which is pretty slow.
Mm-hmm. And you'd have to also deal with the fact that you'd have to make sure that the drops are going to drop somewhere where there's no lava, so that you don't lose anything. I still really feel like there needs to be a better technical way of moving things around in the Nether. I would, again, modded Minecraft is tempting me with any kind of Nether mod that allows me to move items that aren't just like invisibly seeing them go in hoppers. I've had a very technical mind lately for things, and I just, I love my water streams, and my, recently bopped into the Southport block bank basement, has the water-based sorting system underneath it, to grab some stuff on a stream, and it's like, man, I really like it in here. Like when you put stuff into the bank, like you can see it all flying around, and I wish you could do cool stuff like that in the Nether. It would give me more fun, interesting things to do rather than just big giant hallways and holes.
Yeah.
Speaking of, though, that's kind of what I've been doing in the Citadel builds. At the very bottom of the Nether, we are building the Netherite Hall, and it's taking a much better shape now that I've dug out a large portion of the 100 block by 17 block long hallway. Alistair is actually helping me out on stream the other day. There's been a lot of multiplayer stuff happening on the Citadel lately, like a lot of people jumping on and doing projects together, jumping in kind of like Discord chat, and it's been really fun. The Nether update has kind of revitalized some people's interest in doing things together because they have bigger jobs, more tedious things to get to from point A to point B. And so it always goes a lot faster when you've got a friend to chat with and you've got some help. But I have been on purpose building quite a lot with Blackstone because, again, trying to shape my opinion of the block. And I've included a screenshot in the Discord chat for our live listeners, as well as I'll have it on the blog post as well. And I'm pretty happy with it. Now, big asterisks, this is a dark build. Like the light currently is got torches there, but those are not going to be there. It's going to be mostly lit from magma blocks and maybe a couple of lava streams in the walls. So it's not going to be a very light build. So the level of detail you can see in the textures is going to be pretty minimal. I'm discovering that I do like Blackstone as you pull it out of the ground as a vertical texture. So I don't really like the top of it that much. It has some specific uses, but the side of it, if you create a wall of it, much like when you line up obsidian to do a nether portal, I've got a couple of 3x3 vertical sections that I think are really, really worth it. And having the side texture there looks pretty good as like a backdrop. You can put other things on top of it, like sconces and fire and torches and things. But then the other part that I'm using the regular Blackstone is in the form of stairs underneath pillars. And again, minimal use. You only really see the side until you get close enough that you see the top of the stairs, because the top of the stairs has got a different texture than the sides. I'm noticing that I can use polished Blackstone, not in anything else but next to basalt. It actually has the same color. And so you were talking earlier about color harmony in nether blocks. So polished basalt doesn't really work because it gets too light. But regular basalt has enough of a purple hue to it that the very purple Blackstone does sort of jive well with it. The other Blackstone clashes. It tends to be too dark. The other Blackstone variants like bricks and other polished things are a little bit more difficult to work with. So my opinion still stands that 2/3 of the material that you can get from Blackstone, the variations of different blocks, is a kind of a missed opportunity, I think, to have something that jives a little bit better.
Yeah, I would still be kind of inclined to use a texture pack to create a black variant of natural stone from the overworld, just to have something less noisy to work with. But yeah, I'm finding ways to work with it, and like you, I'm finding the natural Blackstone actually looks really good in natural builds and vertical builds. There's another screenshot that once again will be in the show notes for folks listening at home and is in the Discord chat for anybody listening live, where I've been working on a volcanic biome in the area surrounding my base in the Minecraft Survival Guide world, and that's mainly using the combination I mentioned an episode or two ago, using shroom lights and magma blocks together to form the kind of a more static lava flow and a much less dangerous one, a much safer one, but then surrounding that with Blackstone and then a layer of basalt around that and a layer of cobblestone around that and then natural stone beyond those boundaries, and seeing that combination of stuff come together and having Blackstone basically border the magma river as it flows down from the top of this mountain, I think looks pretty good. And it adds a very nice gradient to the surroundings. And I've been trying to use gradient stuff like that more, especially after our conversation with Gemini Tay a few episodes ago. So I think using it for landscaping stuff like that still works pretty well, and Blackstone in a natural environment is looking better for me than using Blackstone for, manual human construction kind of stuff. And now that I say human construction, I kind of wonder what it would look like in a more alien style of build. But we'd have to see how that worked out.
Moving on to the news, we've got Java Edition Snapshot 20W30A, modified how respawn positions are chosen for beds and respawn anchors. Respawn anchors will prioritize cardinal directions over corners. Beds will prioritize the side of the bed the player entered from, and then spaces circling around the foot of the bed up to the head of the bed. A little bit easier to see in a video, but essentially they've streamlined the way that respawning works. Respawning players will now face the block they respawned at. Placing players onto dangerous blocks is now avoided when possible. Lanterns can now be waterlogged. Yay. Soul lanterns can now be waterlogged. Also yay. Tweaked the Bastion Remnant chest loot, added enchanted gold axes to all loot chests, added cooked pork chop, golden carrots, golden apples, diamond sword, and diamond shovel for generic loot chests, added enchanted golden apples and treasure room loot chests, and adjusted the likelihood of certain items appearing. Chests in Bastion Remnants are now more likely to be located on top of gilded blackstone. Technical changes for the snapshot. The sign edit screen will now initialize from exiting a sign. Text should have no noticeable impact, on vanilla. Tags can now be optional entries, explained more in detail on the blog post at minecraft.net. Notable bug fixes this week are villagers often get stuck when trying to go through a door at the same time. Villagers spam doors by opening and closing them really fast, and large end cities do not generate correctly or get cut off. That's specific to the snapshot. I think in 16.1 they're working fine, but in the snapshots they're currently not working. Another little anecdote, which is worth checking out, is a short 6-minute video. Dev Diaries number 2. I'm not sure where number 1 went. I think number 1 might be counted as the trailer.
Number 1 was about Minecraft Earth, if I remember correctly. So it's not just about Minecraft Java development or Bedrock development. It's kind of about developing Minecraft as a whole category of products at this stage. But yeah, that was the Minecraft Earth one.
No apparent order to them, and their YouTube algorithm, even when I went to the Minecraft website or Minecraft YouTube channel, didn't show me episode number 1. So, man, a little bit confusing. However, I did enjoy the Dev Diaries number 2, which involved talking about the Nether sound, which was very, very cool. I would highly recommend people check that out. Always cool to see behind the scenes. In my opinion, the Dev Diaries are a little bit on the light side. I would like to do a little bit more detail. A little bit less scripted jokes, but they're kind of hitting a mixed audience, I think.
Yeah, I think they're aiming it towards younger kids, and the same is true of the trailer that they had for How We Make Minecraft, which was another thing that we didn't cover last week, but it came out roughly last week sometime, where they are planning on making more of a documentary style look at how Minecraft is made, but it follows the format of the 10 Things You Didn't Know About Minecraft videos, where it's a little bit kind of jokey in its presentation. I think the subtitle for the series was something like A Detailed Guide on How to Rip Us Off or something like that, which shows they've got a sense of humor about it, and it's kind of aimed, like you said, at a mixed audience. It's meant to appeal to everybody from younger players who probably don't care all that much about like the coding side of things and the intricate sort of decision making and the reasoning behind some of this stuff, to more adult players and people who have a bit more interest in the why of things rather than the how of things. It's going to be interesting to see what that turns out like in the end, because the trailer seems to be taking a very light-hearted approach to it, but I'd like to see how serious and in-depth they get about all of it, and how it differs from this Dev Diaries approach that they've already been taking.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Minecraft dungeons behind the scenes. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to more.
I thought those were a super interesting insight into the process of making that game, and it being an interesting kind of look at an individual Minecraft product as opposed to Minecraft as a whole phenomenon as it is right now. Let's talk about this Java Edition snapshot though. I expect some of these features, if they're not making it into Bedrock Edition beta, will probably just come out in the next numbered release for Bedrock Edition as well. We've got stuff like bed respawn positions being more accurate. I think that's a good change. It makes things a little bit more consistent and logical for the player, and I feel like a lot of the bug fixes lately have been focused on making things a bit more intuitive. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah, I think that while it's not a terribly quote-unquote exciting change in the snapshot, I think that they are not only just making things more consistent, but then also documenting them. Like giving them specific parameters for one, just basic player expectation. And even if you don't make a note of where you spawn or how you spawn, it's just going to feel more consistent, I think, as a player. You might not realize it's happening, but you're going to notice it. In terms of just like a feel, oh, this happened last time, I'm in the same spot, facing the same way, etc. I think that it will have more implications that I'm not really in tune with for things like map makers and minigame designers.
Yeah, I think it might also have some sort of impact in occasional devices that people make that are either intended to respawn them in an area where they can immediately right-click on the bed that they were using so that they can constantly make sure they're sleeping if there's some sort of contraption they're running that needs to not happen during the night or something like that. There might be some things there that need to be adjusted, but I think the way they have done it doesn't seem to be going to break anybody's designs in particular. I don't think it's necessarily that much of a change. I think it's just going to be more logical for players who want to get out of the bed on the right side, I guess.
Something that I think is really interesting that would be fun and really only helps if like it's maybe that you died when you're respawning. But I like the idea of having your bed someplace, but then if you know you consistently respawn on this very specific block, if you could do something like have a tripwire hook or something that allows that block to be then retracted by a piston and send you into a automatic like minecart or teleportation device, or like, you know, anything that kind of moves you around automatically just by respawning. It's like, well, yes, I've respawned. I don't necessarily want to be here though. I need to go immediately to my storage room, you know, or something like that, without depending on how you've got yourself set up. You know, if you weren't thinking ahead when you designed your original Minecraft build, you're like, well, I'm respawning in this bed, but it's miles from where I normally hang out. And if I could just like respawn and then automatically be like slime block catapulted to where I need to be,
I'm imagining
kind of fun.
I'm imagining like a Wallace and Gromit or Thunderbird style Rube Goldberg machine approach to this whole thing, and it's very, very fun. Other stuff, lanterns and soul lanterns now being waterlogged. Obviously niche cases for these, but I think a few people specifically wanted that as a thing, and I don't think it does anybody any harm. Also allowing
bushes?
More...
bushes waterlogged yet?
Please.
Oh yeah, bushes.
It at least adds a little bit more variety to if people want to build like underwater ghost ship style builds or something like that, or if you're building a base where you want variety of lighting choices because you've got conduit power nearby and your whole operation is underwater intentionally, then yeah, it's cool to have additional lighting options there. And I don't think it wasn't doing anybody any harm. Nobody was relying on lanterns not being waterloggable, so I think that makes perfect sense. And the Bastion Remnant loot tweaks weren't included in the blog post, but I thought I would outline what a few of those were here, at least the ones I could see from looking at the tables on the Minecraft wiki and just kind of playing Spot the Difference. And the likelihood of certain items appearing in the loot chest is, I think, an adjustment to ancient debris being slightly more available from loot chests in Bastions, which kind of ties in a little bit to a discussion I want to have later in this episode about loot chests and how to make them a little bit more worthwhile, because it's still very rare that you end up getting something you want from a loot chest, and with the structures being a little bit few and far between. You said you'd only found one Bastion so far after a month or so of the Nether update. I think it's kind of interesting seeing how that loot is balanced versus its actual desirability, which could be interesting. But now there's also the likelihood of getting enchanted golden apples in those treasure room loot chests, which makes sense because they're another golden item that the piglins would probably want, and it also means more of a chance of getting those in general now that they are only available as loot and they aren't able to be crafted in more recent versions of Minecraft. So I think that makes a lot of more sense. The big change I really feel like from this is chests and Bastion Remnants now being more likely to generate on top of Gilded Blackstone, because that is a pretty tricksy way of Mojang getting around the problem of players just breaking the block underneath a chest and placing a hopper, because now if you break the block of Gilded Blackstone, all the piglins in the area get alerted to you. So
there you go.
That's actually a smart way of fixing that. There are still ways around it, of course. A lot of people have said, well, just push the Blackstone block with a piston and stuff. Yes, but that is still, once again, encouraging players to take a slightly more inventive approach and forcing them to carry more stuff with them if they want to raid the Bastion successfully. You could also maybe add another chest onto the side of a single chest, and if that goes over a block that you can break, then you can add a hopper to that one, double up on the chests, but then if you break that chest down again, that's when the piglins are going to get alerted again. So you have to prepare in advance a little bit more than you did previously, and I think it's kind of cool that they are taking that approach to it.
I died to a piglin on stream, I think. I think it was on stream. And I was wearing my gold helmet. I wasn't opening chests, and they got mad at me. I was like, what's going on? And I realized that now, having this conversation, I mined gold nether ore, not Gilded Blackstone. I didn't realize that mining gold from the nether outside of bastions angered them. I knew the chests did. And so when I was out collecting my blackstone and basalt and putting it into the shulker boxes, I was constantly checking around to make sure that what I could see were zombified piglin and not regular
Yeah.
piglin.
Yeah.
Not if you know they're coming, it's actually not so bad. They still hit pretty hard, even when you're because I'm just wearing a Lytra in the Nether. But when you do fight them, if you've got an end leveled sword, like you're fine. It's 1-2 hits maybe. Like they're no harder than a zombie in terms of that. It's when they drop in on you from above that you didn't know they were there, and they hit you first, and they get that extra hit in. Then it becomes a little bit of a tricky situation, especially because I wasn't at full health anyway.
Yeah.
I was. But the chat informed me, I think afterwards, like, oh, you got to be careful when you're mining. It's like, oh, because I was just like auto mining all the quartz, gold ore, and blackstone and basalt that I could find in the immediate area.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, shiny, I want, typical Minecraft behavior. And I was just like, why did I get clocked from behind? It's like, I don't understand what happened. And it's because of the gilded, or not gilded, so not gilded blackstone. Sorry, it was just regular. What's it called? Just gold ore in the Nether.
It's nether gold ore. So
nether gold ore. Yeah.
Yeah. The type of stuff that generates looking like netherrack with gold pieces in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bug fixes, we'll skip over the technical changes because I don't think either of those are things I can explain. But like I said, there are going to be examples on the blog post that will clue you into that if you're interested in the technical changes. The bug fixes I quite liked because it seemed to be a villager politeness update. Villagers not trying to wrestle through the same door at the same time and spamming doors so they make that awful loud noise when they're just standing next to a thing and trying to go in and out of the house. I thought that was kind of funny that those two fixes lined up to make dealing with villagers a slightly more pleasant experience.
I think it's one of those things. It's like when your fridge turns off, you don't notice that it was on until it's off. And
Yes.
everyone, I think, has just gotten so used to the eye roll of the villager opening and slamming the door constantly,
Yeah.
where it happens and you go, really, Minecraft? Okay. And you just kind of keep on going. People that have the old-fashioned villager trading halls, or perhaps the really old iron golem farms where there was a lot of doors,
Yes.
might be more attuned to this issue if you were not smart enough to build that far enough away from your base that you can't hear it. I remember in my original Minecraft world, when I was exploring different mechanics and stuff like that, that hearing that constantly, where they're like a villager was stuck somewhere or whatever, and they were constantly opening and shutting the door, and it's, oh my gosh, it was one of those things where it's like, well, this game's not perfect, obviously, but I think that goes a long way to, I think people will enjoy the smoother pathing and door mechanics for villagers.
Well, let's move on to emails for this week. If you'd like to email the show, and we have an email, I think, lined up already for our episode 100 discussion, but we're always looking for more stuff that can add to the episodes. The email address is spawnchunkmail@gmail.com, and we've got a couple of emails to get into this week. I think one of those is going to be folded into your discussion for the kind of roundtable segment later on, but in the meantime, why don't you read this first email here?
This one comes from Sky Faziz. Better optimization than Optifine. Hi, Jonny and Joel. I recently came across a fabric mod called Sodium, and it supposedly works even better than Optifine. The only downside I have seen so far is that it does not offer as much customization as Optifine is able to give you. It potentially gives you almost twice the amount of frames Optifine is able to provide. That is what a render distance. That is with a render distance set to 16. Vanilla gives roughly 90 for FPS. I don't know if that's true, but with Optifine running, it gives you 150 FPS. But with Sodium, it's able to give you 290 FPS. A lot of numbers, but ultimately the message here is that it's get better performance to Sodium. And just to top it all off, you combine Sodium with a mod called Phosphor, and the chunks load incredibly fast. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up, and maybe this can help Joel play Minecraft without getting ill. Cheers from Norway, Sky. We also had an email from Oberon, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, also recommending that I try Fabric/Sodium. And the email is a bit anecdotal. The numbers are a little bit based on really what machine you're running.
Yeah, it's going to depend on your individual hardware, isn't it?
Yeah. I have some hard evidence, though, in my experience, in that Optifine is currently still not finished for 16.1 the last time I checked it. And I have not been able to go along with the preview version. So when I play Minecraft, I have this frame stutter we all know about, and it causes me to not be able to play Minecraft for very long. It's not an enjoyable experience. So through the recommendation of some people that emailed in, again, thank you very much, I decided to try out Fabric. And add some different optimization things. One of the things I was trying was Optifabric, which allows you to use Optifine within Fabric. Still couldn't use the latest preview versions. They were causing the same issues that I was experiencing. So, but preview version 2 for 16.1 seemed to be the best. Not perfect, but it was getting me where I wanted to be in terms of removing my frame stutter and making things a little bit easier on the eyes. However, this weekend, I did 2 sizable Minecraft streams running Fabric without Optifine. Optifine and Optifabric have been discontinued for Fabric compatibility. You can no longer use Optifine with Fabric unless someone picks up the mantle of the Optifabric mod. I am, however, running 3 performance-based mods, sodium, lithium, and phosphor. Sodium replaces Optifine, quote unquote. The details on the Curse Forge website basically talk about frame performance. Frame stutter reduction is like the second point of the things that it does, and I'm telling you, it does. It works. Lithium is for things like physics in the game, mob AI, and block tracking. So think like you have a lot of redstone farms, a lot of items. And then phosphor is specifically for lighting. So I'm running all 3. I have not tested with just one. I just kind of like said, well, these look like they're all doing different things. I'll put them in my kitchen sink of mods and see if this works. Turns out I don't have a frame stutter anymore. It's fantastic. I don't have to run Optifine. Sodium does not have nearly the amount of customization. They're right. It's like fog on off. There's no fog distance setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is very little in terms of animation customization, that kind of thing. However, I normally hover around like 60 FPS, give or take, because of the way that the system is working. I never saw it dip below 75. I wasn't checking. I was just kind of going on player experience and whether or not I was getting a headache within 20 minutes. And I felt that it was pretty smooth. And I'm in a netherrack cave. Like I could basically not pick a worse place to try and stream for the weekend. So I kind of stress tested it both in the location and what I was doing. And I thought it was great. I would encourage people to try it, like download Fabric and try some of these mods yourself rather than relying on anecdotal YouTube reports, because everybody's going to have a different machine, especially people that are creating videos on YouTube. They generally have a beefier computer than the average person. Mm-hmm. So I think that trying Fabric, especially if you're on an older system, it might end up working out good for you. I do have some quality of life mods in there which are really nice. Optifine, of course, a lot of people, especially content creators, like the zoom function. Logical Geek Boy, who's been on the show before, has Logical Zoom, a plugin for Fabric, a mod for Fabric that basically just does one thing. It gives you the zoom. Mm-hmm. It's the same hotkey. He adds a little bit more functionality for content creators, for like the slow camera move. I'm also using the Shulker Box tooltip, which Azumavoid has talked about on his channel before. And really, it doesn't change the gameplay. It just lets you look inside a Shulker Box without placing it down and opening it up. And when you're endgame Minecraft with a ender chest full of Shulker Boxes and you need to know which of these 3 white ones is the right one, I feel like it's a nice little quality of life tweak. But I'm going to be doing further testing. I do notice that with the phosphor lighting, Minecraft looks a little bit different, and I don't know if it's better or worse. It just feels smoother, which could be just, the way that Minecraft should be lit. I don't know. But I am going to try reducing the mods and seeing if any one mod is really changing the way that the game is working for me. I've got a funny feeling that sodium is the one that is more than likely causing the best kind of performance uptick. I don't know if lithium and sodium are conflicting. The nice thing about these mods for Fabric is that rather than being a kitchen sink, they tend to focus on one thing. So sodium is like performance based. Lithium is more like in-game stuff, like block tracking and mob AI. And then phosphor is just lighting. And phosphor kind of goes out of their way in their description to say, like, we don't do anything else. We just mess with lighting. So if lighting is your issue, this is the mod that you should try. So I don't know. While I'm happy to be able to play Minecraft at a rate that doesn't give me a headache. I also feel like my 2019 November computer should be running Minecraft no problem on its own. But they're good solutions. Thank you very much to the people that wrote in and suggested Fabric and Sodium. So far, it's solved my immediate problems, and I'm back to streaming for longer periods and feeling good about it. So I very much appreciate the input.
I think that's the best outcome that it could possibly have been, is just like making sure that you are back in a position where you don't have to worry about frame stutter issues anymore. You don't have to worry about getting motion sickness every time you play. And it's always interesting when new versions of stuff like this comes out, when new optimization mods come out, because you have to imagine that they are compromising something somewhere. Otherwise, you expect that the Java development team, talented programmers that they are, might be able to implement something like this themselves, and you wonder why they haven't. And so I do wonder what aspects of Minecraft it has to compromise, or quite how those optimizations are being made in ways that they haven't been already. But I don't know very much about development in general, and I don't know what the Java team has priority over, and what, you know, they're leaving open for the future by leaving some of this code maybe less optimized than it could potentially be through community effort. Or if they want to leave those options open to the community to optimize the game in certain ways that the Java team doesn't want to. I don't know. I'm not certain how that all works, but it's great that it does. I have had several people inform me about using Sodium, and I personally have no problem using Optifine, and it's a one mod solution to all of my problems without having to run Fabric and all of the other stuff attached to it, so I don't see the need to switch myself. But the fact that it's enabling you to play Minecraft to a quality that you weren't able to get before by either having the vanilla game or having Optifine, that's very good news to me. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of buzz around this lately, and so maybe just a couple of well-placed social posts and on forums and stuff like that is spreading this one like wildfire, but it does seem to be very much like the flavor of the week, and hopefully if it means Minecraft is more accessible to people, then great. I've definitely heard people with older hardware, especially like old laptops and stuff, saying I can finally get above 30 FPS when I play Minecraft. I was looking at more like 10 to 15, and nobody wants to play a slideshow. So yeah, if it makes Minecraft more playable for you, then great. I assume you're losing some of the other stuff Optifine gives you, like shaders support and stuff like that, like extra anti-aliasing options and things like that. I imagine might be more taxing on the system anyway, but aren't naturally integrated into something like Sodium.
There's a lot of stuff that was the same in terms of like, map settings, and I don't know if anti-aliasing was there. I mean, basically I went into the Sodium settings and just everything was on. And that's fine. Unfortunately, not all of these mods give you options. It's more like if you want to tweak them, you have to get into the code.
It's like config stuff rather than like options menu.
Yeah, the developers don't necessarily give you an options menu, although they are there. So, for example, the Shulker Blocks tooltip has its own little options menu, which allow you to change the hotkeys, left or right handed. Like, gives you some options there, because in case you have like a key conflict that you don't want to use Shift to see inside of a Shulker Box, that sort of thing, which is great. But what I think was interesting about the mods is that it's really, I mean, you have to download Optifine and install it, and then it gives you a drop down in your Minecraft launcher. Installing Fabric, there's only one extra step. You just have to install the Fabric API in the mods folder. That's it. And then anything you wanted to quote unquote install, all you do is drag the mod file into the mod folder. And so it's not more complicated than Optifine, which is good. And Fabric and the Fabric mods were updated to 16.1 like the week it came out.
Yeah.
So that kind of speed for development might be having me switch over there. I am missing my connected textures. There is a connected texture mod that I found for Fabric, but it seems to conflict with Sodium. So the connected texture thing that you get with Optifine is obviously a little bit tricky and missing currently for me, which I do miss because my Nether hub looks really weird with like a Tron grid floor.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing I haven't tested it because I haven't been in the modern city, but the tables and chairs data pack that I use for tables and chair models for the city, that would be not working because that relies on Optifine. And so I might have some choices to make later on. It might be something where I end up using Fabric for those weeks when we wait for Optifine to get optimized. I don't know. But again, it's one of those things that is specific to me, but I think there's enough people out there that might be dealing with like slower Minecraft performance that it was worth sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely worth a try. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is making Minecraft an enjoyable experience for you. And if Sodium and the other mods we talked about are the ones to do that, then great. And happy crafting to all of you. Let's get into the round table for this week. We haven't done a proper round table discussion where we've each brought a topic for a little while, it feels like, because there's been so much else going on with, the ramp up to 1.16 and then obviously 1.16 being out and everybody wanting to talk about the Nether update. But I feel like the hype is dying down a little bit now. Things are starting to ease into the week to week, month to month cycle of how Minecraft operates the rest of the time. And so I thought it was going to be kind of fun to bring the roundtable format back and talk about little things that have been on our minds lately. And since this is also linked to an email, how about you kick us off?
Sure. I received an email talking about something that I actually have been thinking about for quite some time. This is from Marco89LCDM, Teleport Time Saver. Hi, Jonny and Joel. I've noticed on the Azuma episode that Joel said that the Citadel has some TP command blocks, teleport command blocks, in order to travel from point to point because the adult player needs to have free time to do adult things. I'm really glad to hear this because I've been feeling bad using some commands on my single player world, most of the TP commands, in order to save me some time. I am a 31-year-old father of 3 wonderful children and have a full-time shift job, i.e., they have no time.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear your opinion on this matter. Do you consider that cheating? Knowing that all the grindy stuff in Minecraft is done legitimately, I can't speak today, but some of the most time-consuming things like traveling or locating good terrain generations or structures have been done with some quote-unquote help. Absolutely love the show. Keep up the hard work. Marco89LCTM. Thanks so much for a great email. And this kind of brings me into the topic that I wanted to put out there in terms of the teleporting command block specifically, but also other time saver things that kind of delves into a little bit more of like the looking up seed maps on wiki or online and trying to figure out where biomes are, that kind of thing. Getting this question a lot on my Twitch channel because of running Fabric and because of doing some teleportation. When I do want to show off the city really quickly, I do have a teleport button essentially at our world hub that takes me 4,000 blocks away to the city, which allows me to show it off on stream in 3 minutes as opposed to flying there or walking there in the Nether. First up, no, I don't think utilizing teleport commands is quote unquote cheating. As Jonny said just a few minutes ago, craft the way you want to craft, play the game you want to play. Everyone plays this game a different way. While command blocks are not in the vanilla survival gameplay mode, they are part of the vanilla game. It's not a mod. They are part of Minecraft. And I think utilizing them is just another way to craft in Minecraft. The difference is that you're graduating from doing redstone contraptions to actually doing some programming within Minecraft's internal programming language to do something that you want to do. There is a whole world of command blocks that I don't understand, but I'm familiar enough with the teleport command to kind of get in here and talk a little bit about it. I really enjoyed learning the different syntax and the different things that you could do. I thought you could just teleport yourself. I didn't know that you could not only change the way that you're looking, but also the angle that you're looking. So if you have some specific storytelling you want to do, if you want to teleport someone to a room where they're looking at a monument, you can actually do that. That was news to me when I set up the command blocks on the Citadel to do the teleporting thing. So I think that having the teleport command in a command block in a world that utilizes it is something that everybody just has to make that choice. If it might be a server where it's hard rules, no command blocks, everything is done the old-fashioned way. At which point, either choose to or not to play on that server, that sort of thing. But if it's your own single-player world, like, you're not going to have any fun if you spend 3 hours looking for a biome that you can't find, and that is the only 3 hours that you had to play Minecraft for the entire week. Like, that just sucks, right? It's not a feel-good experience.
So entirely agree.
Yeah, and so ahead of all of this too, like on the Citadel, granted, I did kind of choose a random seed. I typed in a known address and used that seed to that seed information to then get the seed that we're playing on. I also took a look at it on a Java mapping tool, and I took a look at it on, I can't remember what the name of the mapping website was, but there's several. They're easy to find.
Mine Atlas or Chunk Base or one of those, basically.
Yeah, one of those. I wasn't like I was specifically looking for, biomes. I wanted to make sure that we weren't miles from a desert, that we weren't miles from a mesa, that we weren't miles from a ice spikes, because I wanted to do some technical stuff. Everybody likes glass early in the game, and you don't want to be stuck without it for a long time. I feel like, that kind of a search just kind of set up the server for pleasant gameplay and success and people wanting to play around and having some fun. So I don't consider that cheating either. You have to look at the wiki for a lot of stuff. It's better now than it used to be, but you still have to look at the wiki for a lot of stuff in Minecraft. So again, does looking up something on the wiki included in the survival gameplay? No, but it's part of the game. It's part of the Minecraft experience, I think. On the Citadel, one of the ways that I've got around having this feel out of place is by building my own portals. So when you go to the center of our world, on the overworld, there are man-made stone and glass doorways, quote unquote, that look like portals. They've just got stone buttons at the bottom of them that you have to press. And I could change that to a pressure plate later on if I wanted to. But what it means is that it feels like, as a player, that you're going to a special location, and that is the only way that you can, teleport to this new place. Currently, that's just a button. We're thinking about in the future, as we go to the medieval districts and some other places that are farther away, to try and jumpstart the economy on the server. We're thinking about having it cost something, whether that's diamonds or something else, so that you can't just bop back and forth at will. You kind of have to have at least a little bit of a price to pay. So you, rather than just having a button to activate your teleport command, what about creating a redstone device where you have to insert a special object, whether that's, a diamond or a block of emerald ore, or like whatever it is. I know you winced at that pixel. I'm sorry. You can do things to make it feel less like, quote unquote, cheating to you. One of the examples that I really like is that on the Realm of Vastin, they include the teleport commands in sailing ships. And then there's a copy of the sailing ship at your destination. So it's seamless. It doesn't feel like you've moved until you leave the ship and you realize that you're in a different city port, which is really cool. And a really ingenious way of including the teleport command for the same reason. Vastin is a bunch of busy adults that, need to be able to have lives outside of Minecraft. So, I mean, that's kind of an initial discussion. So where do you lie on this, Johnny? Like, where do you feel the teleport command lies in the Minecraft experience?
When it comes to cheating, the question you've always got to ask yourself is, who are you cheating? You know what I mean? Like, the whole classification of it as cheating, I think personally, is kind of a misguided one, and is there as part of a legacy of, console commands being part of cheats in the grander scheme of video gaming culture. It's not like you're entering a cheat code like the kind of Konami code, up, down, left, right, select, whatever it is. I think the way you've got to look at cheating from the perspective of, like, who is being disadvantaged here? Who are you cheating out of something if you are doing this? And at what point do you weigh that up? I think, especially when it comes to, having to spend time with your kids and at your job, and then having a fun Minecraft experience on top of that, I think, in a way, if you were to spend the amount of time it took to go from place to place instead of teleporting, you are then cheating yourself out of time spent with your kids, is the way I like to think about it. It really comes down to, like, who stands to lose anything from that. And if you are teleporting yourself around and giving yourself resources and stuff, but then you are lying to people by saying you're not doing that, I feel like that's a different story, because then you are withholding the truth from people and you are representing it as something that it is not. But then, like, I don't think that's going to be the case with worlds like this, where really you're just in it to have a fun gameplay experience. And Minecraft is, at its core, a sandbox. Whether you play the survival game or the creative game, it is up to you how you play. And if you want to have a world that you switch from survival to creative, so you do some stuff in survival and creative, still a completely valid way to play Minecraft. I think ultimately it just comes down to, like, who is being cheated here? And does that ultimately matter in your experience of the game? If you play in a community of people, if you play on a server and you are using cheats unbeknownst to the rest of the server, and you are still claiming to play the same game everybody else is playing, that's wrong. And that's an example of where cheating has a negative effect on the community as a whole. But if cheating in this case can have a positive effect on your own life, and it's just a single-player world where there aren't really any stakes beyond your own enjoyment of the game, that really shouldn't matter to anybody. And if it does, I feel like those people need to re-examine their own priorities. Because, ultimately, people calling you out for teleporting around in your world, what does it matter to them? Unless you are somehow representing your world as somewhere that you don't teleport at all, like you're not lying to yourself by saying, I teleport around in my survival world just because it's easier for me to do that sometimes if I just want to get home so I can log out of Minecraft and go and take my kids to the park. Like that's fine by me. I have no problem with that whatsoever, and I don't think anybody should.
If we're going to be playing on words, I mean, like if you're spending all this time in Minecraft walking around, I mean, are you cheating your family out of time that you could be spending with them by not installing a teleport block? And the thing too is that like there's a lot of stuff out there. Like I mean, we just finished talking about Optifine and client side mods that improve the experience. People use Optifine all the time. Technically, that's modded Minecraft, but people, especially content creators, use it so often to get better production rates of their videos, to get the zoom key, which is incredibly handy as a content creator to point stuff out. People just accept it as like, that's just normal. To the point where people install Minecraft and they go, how come I can't zoom? And then somebody is like, oh, that's not part of the game. You have to install that separately. Like people just assume that it's all part of the experience. I really feel like they should change the allow cheats button text. They've done so much text changes and menu changes lately, and they just won't change that allow cheats button to like allow commands button. I think it creates a whole other context and just emotional experience of calling it, do you use commands or not versus do you cheat or not? I think that's a very different in the English language that has two very different meanings.
Yes. It's a loaded term at this point,
Yeah, and sometimes we get, I say sometimes, we get a lot of email from people asking, like, what do I build next? I don't know what to do. Well, if you're in a position where teleport blocks might be something that you want to use to stay on the same server, have the endgame experience, but branch out and do new things, they create all kinds of opportunities to, if you feel a little bit bad about using the teleport block, create more work for yourself by incorporating them into the world creatively. Maybe there's ships like on Vastin. What about trains? What about airships? What about a Star Trek transporter room? Like, you can do some cool stuff. Like, now that I've kind of gotten over the fact, because I struggled with this at first, about putting teleport blocks on the Citadel. When we do our sci-fi section, we are putting teleport blocks everywhere because that's just going to be cool. We might even try to incorporate some custom sounds. Maybe not Star Trek-y stuff because it's probably copyrighted, but we might have some cool sci-fi teleport zoom noise that allows us to go and teleport. You can create really cool things. One of the things that I was thinking about was creating maybe like a drop shaft somewhere on the server. Doesn't matter, under the ocean somewhere. And instead of just teleporting yourself from point A to point B, teleport yourself to the top of the drop shaft, have you drop through what appears to be time and space, like a rainbow bridge from Thor, like when they use the rainbow bridge,
the Bifrost, the
Bifrost, thank you, to do something that like that kind of experience. So you have all these blinky lights that flash by, and then when you hit the bottom, or you teleport through whatever, you can have that experience of going to the next place. And it's all creative. It just makes more stuff for you to do and more stuff for you to create in Minecraft. And I think that opens up a world of good. Also, remember, fast travel has been in video games forever.
Yeah.
You very often have to unlock it. Like, usually you have to walk the distance first. But then after you're there, you can unlock a flight path or a fast travel node, or depending on the game. A really good example is World of Warcraft. I used to love walking around World of Warcraft at first. And then I enjoyed being able to go up and get coffee when I was flying on a griffin from halfway across the continent. And so, that kind of stuff, I think, has been part of games for a long time. So don't beat yourself up about it.
Definitely. Hard agree.
So what topic do you have to the table this week?
This week, I'm going to talk about loot chests. And we talked a little bit about loot being rebalanced in this week's Snapshot. And I have a pitch for you more than a discussion topic. I want to talk about how to add value to loot chests, with the problem being that loot chests, in terms of what you get from them, their value decreases over time. There are very few things in Minecraft that can only be obtained in one way, and so players often have easier or more reliable ways to find the stuff that you acquire from loot chests. And obviously, if you're just starting out, if you're, in early game still, loot chests can be a huge boon to you if you find the right stuff. If you find some diamonds when you're exploring your first Nether fortress, that's some diamonds that you didn't have before. In the Nether survival experience I relied on loot from bastions to be able to get diamond anything in the first place, and so that stuff can be incredibly useful. But over time, by the time you're at endgame, there are very few things left which hold genuine value, and there is less desire to go exploring. Ancient debris and netherite are an example of one thing which is possible to get through loot chests, which still has value to players right now. But your chances of finding it as loot, even though they have been boosted slightly in the latest snapshot, are still slim enough that the thrill of raiding those loot structures doesn't necessarily balance out the effort required when you could just go mining below lava lakes, and if you're careful, then you can acquire vastly more ancient debris than you ever would raiding structures. You might have slightly less fun, or it might just be, a quick dash in, dash out on any bastions that you find. You might find that gets as repetitive as mining after a while. I don't think it balances out the effort required. The other thing being elytra, which is, of course, immensely valuable, only obtained through going out and raiding end city ships, but can be lost. And on multiplayer servers especially, elytra are relied upon so much that you often have people installing data packs that allow you to get elytra a different way, either by changing the Ender Dragon's loot tables, or I think you said on Vaston they had a way to craft them using phantom membrane, so that you at least had some effort was involved, but then if you wanted to catch up to other players on the multiplayer server, you could do so very easily. You also have people resetting the end, which there isn't a way to do in-game, so you have to edit the world files in order to make sure that elytra is accessible to everyone. And so that presents the other problem of something being scarce enough and losable enough that you end up with, a bit of an imbalance there as well. And I've come up with a solution which might be a little controversial and some people might not care about, but I think is an interesting way of making sure loot chests are going to be kind of fun for people to go out and get, regardless of what stage they are in the game. And the solution, to my mind, is cosmetic items. This is the kind of stuff that, you see people still putting in microtransactions in free-to-play games so that they can buy cosmetic stuff, right? Cosmetic stuff still holds this kind of inherent value because it allows you to be a bit more unique. And when you are at endgame, or even when you're first starting out the game, the elements of Minecraft that allow you to be unique, i.e. your player skin, quickly gets covered up by armor that always looks the same. So I think cosmetic items which affect your armor, your tools, your elytra, stuff like that could actually be kind of awesome. And this goes beyond the kind of stuff they're currently doing with the Bedrock Edition character creator, because the character creator gives you options to change your skin, but once again, that stuff gets covered up by armor as you play. And I feel like cosmetic items ultimately are desirable at every level of gameplay because they do not affect gameplay at all. So it's not the kind of thing that it is necessary for you to get any other way by going mining for it or whatever, because you're not necessarily going to need it as such. But then when you find it in a loot chest, you can call them loot boxes at this point if we want to draw the microtransaction route, but I think it's kind of fun to find stuff like that. The examples I'm going to use, inspired by two things, the Quark mod by Vazkey and Minecraft Dungeons. Now, Minecraft Dungeons, as we're aware at this point, has a whole bunch of different sets of armor, all of which look very unique, and they're all quite in-world feeling for Minecraft. You have like a thief set of armor that has like a more of a robe style thing with a hood, and there's a unique variant of that one that has a spider head on it that looks super cool. You've got full plate armor, you've got more archery-based armor, stuff like that. I would absolutely love there to be cosmetic items which are not necessarily part of a texture pack, that are like in-world things that you can go out and find, which you can then add to some sort of cosmetic menu and change the way your armor looks. And I think that could allow players to customize themselves in ways that the skin creator doesn't really allow for once you're using custom armor. And yes, could be done with a texture pack, but then it's something that if it's in-game, if it's baked into the system, then everyone will be able to see it, and it'll allow you to feel more unique in those situations. Giving players an incentive to raid structures looking for items like this, looking to maybe complete the full set of something if it affects each piece of armor individually, I think would be a really fun challenge. on the flip side, looking at the example from Quark, Quark has this thing with runes, where you find colored runes occasionally in loot chests. They're quite rare. I'm not sure exactly what chests you find them in, or if it's just a random scattering, but that allows you to change the glint color of the enchantment glow. So it goes through the entire spectrum of available Minecraft colors, the 16 colors that you get. So if you want a fire aspect sword that glows orange, if you find an orange rune, you can have that. 1000% yes. Especially right now with netherite armor, I think being kind of covered up by the purple glow that you have, I really feel like you could add a lot to the game if you could customize the enchantment color from within the game itself. And I think ultimately that lends a little bit more desirability to loot chests at all stages of the game, because you end up with a library of cosmetic items that maybe you could add to some sort of customization menu, so that once you've collected them once, you don't have to worry about losing the item itself. You just end up being able to swap those in and out at will. Or alternatively, maybe you end up with that being a very special, unique piece of armor to you, and it just adds value. And if you lose it, it becomes all the more disappointing or all the more kind of frustrating, but that adds to the emotional experience you're having of the game. I know some people aren't going to care about cosmetic items. They're going to find that kind of thing doesn't appeal to them. But I feel like the option is there, and the kind of stuff that I'm seeing in Minecraft Dungeons where you can really kind of customize your player is really appealing to me at this point. So I'd like to know if people think the same. How about you, Joel? What do you think about the idea of adding cosmetic items to loot?
I really like the idea of bringing over like examples from Minecraft Dungeons, especially because with them, when we talked about earlier about Minecraft like as a whole, you know how Mojang is talking about Minecraft as a whole in these dev videos, it would be really cool to see unique armor items. I've been messing around with my own textures for armor for a long time, but I run into that same problem. I then have to make sure everybody else on the server has access to that texture pack when it's done, you know, and that everybody likes it. You know, like I wonder if there could be something done with a data pack, because I know the data packs can affect loot tables, right?
Yeah.
So the combination of a data pack and a custom texture pack might be able to give you some variations on armor. I know it works with blocks for variations, but I don't know how that works with armor. I've been wanting something like, you know, different armor for a long time, especially with the geometry of it. Like I feel like just the color change is not enough. Like it'd be nice if you have, like you mentioned, like a full plate armor face mask from Dungeons. That would be awesome. Like, I mean, because then you could totally hide your face. You know, you could, if you wanted to, you could have like this mask on, and I feel like it could be cool in that way. There was something that I was talking about either on stream or on this show a long time ago about like having enchanted armor. Like, not only could these cosmetic things be cool looking, but they could also have like fire aspects. And what happens to your armor if you equip all 5 pieces or 5? No, 4 pieces of fire resistant armor? Like, does it look different when you have a full set? You know,
Yeah.
that could be, you know, like, or again, we have you know, different game modes to consider, like PvP. You know, in survival, sure, having cosmetic stuff is fun, but in PvP, having I don't know, a swiftness helmet or swiftness boots that very clearly have the model of a wing on the side of them. If you're chasing someone, you can be visually, you can go, oh, they have swiftness on their boots, and that informs you, the player, what you're dealing with in a PvP situation.
Yeah.
So
I
like
think,
there's lots of different ways that I think that that this could be implemented. But I like the idea of like your combination of cosmetics to make like dungeon loot more appealing, but then that also encourages more exploration.
yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason these dungeons exist in the first place, is for players to go out there and find them. I think there is something to be said for a collectability aspect of it, which you find on servers which have the more mob heads data pack, as an example. Like, going out and finding all of those becomes a fun challenge. They're cosmetic. You're not really going to use them for all that much. You might use them to label chests and things like that. But it's going to give players another collect 'em up kind of aspect to the game, which I think seems kind of cool. And I think it might already be possible to do stuff like this with Optifine, because I think, like we were saying earlier, there are certain data packs that allow for visual stuff to have, synergy with Optifine. So if you have an enchantment on a certain type of armor, or if you rename armor a certain thing, then Optifine can pull a texture from files in your resource pack that you can then load into the game, and maybe some more exaggerated and interesting block models can be used there. But having it in the vanilla game, while it might add a little bit of bulk to the vanilla game, just adds that layer of customizability that might be what Minecraft is missing for some people. And you could have that apply almost like the villager overlays do, where when a villager changes profession, the base layer remains the same, but they get the uniform and stuff on top of that. They get the outfit of their profession on top of that. The same could go for the textures of, your leather through netherite helmets. It can all be the same block model, but then have different stuff added to it. Maybe, glowing lines could overlay on top of it or something like that. And it could feel just customizable enough that you end up with something that looks unique and allows you to feel unique next to all of the other people wearing netherite and elytra. I think it's something that we've already seen start to spin out into players having to wear gold now in the nether, and the kind of customization that causes. Do I go with helmet? Do I go with boots? At what point do I bother with swapping out any of my items? What do I actually want my outfit to look like? Do I care about the kind of cohesive look of it or not? And I think adding a few more customization options like that through cosmetic items like that would be just a fun tweak, which would mean people would be more encouraged to go out and explore.
I'd be curious, especially with things like multiple elytra. Like you mentioned that as an in-game item that is very rare, and people often reset the nether to get more of it. And Vastin having a custom crafting recipe, like having custom models, and you could even, like, if you have a custom model for elytra or multiple custom models, rather than it just being like a collectible thing, you could include it in some sort of either achievement or advancement, or just a crafting combination. Like, well, if you have elytra, similar to what they've done with netherite, right? Like, you have to have a diamond pickaxe, and then you have to find all the netherite, and then you have to add the netherite to the pickaxe, and then it just pops out as a brown pickaxe. If you were doing that, say with like elytra, and the different combinations, like if you've managed to find elytra and you managed to find a netherite ingot, and you had, one other item, pick something from Minecraft, end rod, or magma cream, or something that's a little bit more rare, to find, or harder to craft early game, and you combine those to on a crafting bench to get a new elytra. Doesn't change the functionality. It still works like everyone else's, except for maybe it's dragon wings. I don't know. You could do something cool like that in game that would incentivize players to do more stuff and have more of that collectible feature. We have a couple of players on the Citadel have custom elytra textures. Whenever I'm on Alistair's stream, I have Buzz Lightyear wings.
Nice.
It's kind of fun, because that's not what I look like when on my texture pack. I didn't make it. I wish I did, but I have like a tech. It looks like kind of looks like the vulture from Spider-Man. That's kind of what my elytra look like on mine. But I've always found that the elytra model lacks, in my opinion. Like, it's flat. It's a single polygonal plane. Like, it's really rough compared to some other stuff in Minecraft. The way that to kind of give you some ideas, the way that the tables and chairs data pack works, it's a combination data pack and resource pack. So the data pack side assigns, I want to say it's called custom model data. I could be wrong. Tech people, forgive me. But essentially, every time you flick a trapdoor, it assigns a different custom model data value to that trapdoor. And you can, through programming, assign as many as you want, 2, 5, 7, whatever. And so I then went in and created the models. So Chuck had already made the models. I changed them to be more simple, more vanilla-like. And so there's like 6 different models, I think. But basically, you put down this trapdoor that's assigned the base texture, which gives it a model of a table. Then every time you flick the trapdoor, it gives it a separate model data, and we get 1 leg, 2 legs, 4 legs, pedestal, no legs. And so it allows, with one block, you to cycle through a bunch of different things. And so if you could do that somehow, now the trapdoor is a unique block because you can interact with it. But if you could do that with like, I don't know how you would do that with armor, but like there could be a way to, if you combine items in a crafting recipe, then assign custom model data to it. I could be talking outside of my, wheelhouse here, but that could be something that could be implemented in a way that I think would be up your alley, like in the way that these cosmetic things would be good. You think about the popularity of the mob heads, and then you think back to, what was it called? It was the Hermitcraft Go or Pokemon Go, or
yeah, they had a Hermitron was like the game they had. Yeah, around the time Pokemon Go came out, Rendog decided to rename a bunch of items, hide them around the server, give them different rarities in shulker boxes, and then basically seed this treasure hunt game throughout the entire server, more or less.
And that went bananas. I mean, like, so these mechanics appeal to Minecraft players. We know that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a great idea, dude.
Yeah, I think it could be worth it. And I'm not necessarily coming at it from a perspective of this is what I want. I'm thinking about how I can enhance the game for everybody else just through, the vague idea. How Mojang could do it more to the point, because I'm not planning on making this into a mod or a data pack myself. But I do like the idea of having that level of customizability that we're already seeing in games like Minecraft Dungeons. The precedent is there, even though it's a different type of game. So it's something I'd love to see in future. That's where we're going to wrap up this episode of The Spawn Chunks. Folks, thanks for listening to us ramble as always. You can find information about the show and links to some of the stuff we've talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show was composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud as ever to be a listener-supported podcast. Even more proud this week because we have passed the epic milestone of 200 patrons. Thank you guys so much for pledging your support. You can do that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks, where joining our community gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat, where you can listen into the show live as it is recorded. Special thanks go out to our content engineers, Cameron Sigelski, Greena Canuck, JD Williamson, and Yitz for your support on this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram, but a personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast with your friends. Just tell them about The Spawn Chunks and where they can go to listen. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. Subscribe on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. Leave a review on the Apple Podcast app. It's another way for the general public to find the show. It's also free, so hey, check it out. The RSS feed is on the spawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page. That's where you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixelriffs, and you can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I attempt to make sense of this crazy and wonderful game in a series called the Minecraft Survival Guide. I stream 3 days a week on Twitch, doing behind-the-scenes work for the Survival Guide world, and I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. Aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, is at joelduggan.com. The Citadel Cafe is a podcast I do about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. You can find that at thecitadelcafe.com. Imagine that. And you can follow me at Joel Duggan on social media, and of course Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I've been playing Minecraft now frame stutter free, as well as Satisfactory. And I'm going to do a hard plug here. We did a double feature this weekend where I did a Minecraft stream followed by a Satisfactory stream. And if you're new to Satisfactory, while I am pretty far in the game, a lot of people in the chat were new to the game. So we did a lot of explaining and a lot of exploring. I think you might like it. So check that out at twitch.tv/JoelDuggan.
Thanks for visiting The Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, but it could be so much more colourful.